When I came back, the driveway was empty, stripped of life, silent, as if the house itself was holding its breath. My nameplate was gone, just to bare holes where it had been nailed. My mother stood on the porch, a forced smile plastered across her face, while my sister leaned against her new white car, looking like she owned the sun itself. "Back early, I see," my mother said, her voice sweet but hollow. I just looked past them. The curtains had changed. The walls seemed sharper somehow. "New paint?" I asked. This wasn't the color. My sister twirled her car keys and grinned. "Bad news, genius. You don't live here anymore." I said nothing. I just watched, quietly. They probably expected me to scream, to cry, to crumble in anger. Instead, I smiled, a small, calm smile, the kind that unnerves more than rage. "What's so funny?" my sister asked, frowning. I looked up at the balcony, the same one where, as a child, I had watched my father leave for work, day after day. "Nothing," I said, "just noticing how poetic all this is. Poetic." "You're homeless now," my sister scoffed. "Maybe," I said. "But tell me something, when did you finalize the sale?" "Last week," my mother said proudly. "Got a good price, cash in hand." I nodded slowly. "I know." I recommended the beer. Their laughter froze midair. Their triumphant smiles faltered, replaced by confusion. My mother's eyes darted toward my sister, who had stopped twirling her keys. The air grew thick with unspoken questions. The smirk on my sister's face had completely vanished, replaced by a look of pure bewilderment. I let the silence hang there, enjoying the moment a little too much. They had expected a victim, but they were about to meet the architect of their downfall. And the best part, they had no idea just how deep the rabbit hole went. They had made a fatal mistake. They thought they were the predators in this story, but they had just walked straight into my trap. Part 2, I explained how I had known about their scheme for 6 months, ever since our last family dinner. My sister had cried again about her debts, bad investments, bad men, bad decisions. My mother had called her a victim, and I had called her irresponsible. That's when I realized love doesn't blind, it rots. It decays into a tool for manipulation. I had quietly paid off her last mess and told myself it was the last time. But then, I noticed odd activity in my property records, access logs from strange IP addresses, forged documents, a power of attorney filed under my name that I never signed. At first, I dismissed it as paranoia. Then I realized it was a trap being set for me. But I didn't act immediately. I watched. Weeks turned into months. I learned every whisper, every secret meeting, every detail of their plan. They thought my absence had softened me, that I'd be an easy target. That's the danger of underestimating family. They stop hiding their knives once they think forgiveness is guaranteed. They assumed I was the same person who would always clean up their messes, but I had changed. While they were busy plotting my demise, I was quietly building my defense. They saw my kindness as weakness, my patience as ignorance. Every phone call they made, every document they forged, I was one step ahead. They were playing checkers while I was playing a game of chess they didn't even know existed. They were so confident in their betrayal, so sure of their victory, they never once looked over their shoulders. And that was their biggest mistake. They thought they were selling my home, but the truth was far more complex. They were about to learn a very hard lesson about consequences. Part 3, while they were forging documents, I was busy making my own legal moves. I transferred the real property deed to my holding company, registered under a separate entity. The papers they forged were just real enough to convince them and their beer, but they were legally meaningless in a court of law. On paper, the house seemed to be theirs to sell. In truth, it had been mine the whole time, but the physical house they were standing in front of wasn't the one on the deed. I had moved the legal property to a plot I had quietly purchased years ago, right next door. The legal descriptions were nearly identical, except for one crucial detail: the plot number. They thought they were selling my home. In reality, they had sold nothing but a phantom, a ghost on a piece of paper. I let them complete the sale. I waited for the paper trail to grow, for the evidence of fraud, forgery, and financial misconduct to become undeniable. And then, when they mocked me in the driveway, I didn't get angry. I only waited for the question that would seal their fate. "You recommended the beer?" My mother asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "Yes," I said, pulling out the folded papers stamped with my company's seal. "He works for me. He's the head of acquisitions for my development firm." My sister let out a nervous laugh. "You're bluffing. You don't have a firm." I handed her the papers. She read them, and her face went from disbelief to sheer panic. Her hands started to shake. The color drained from her face as she saw the official seals and signatures. It was all there, in black and white. "Part for this says the title was transferred to your company 2 years ago," I said calmly. "The house you just sold wasn't mine. In fact, it wasn't anyone's. The entire sale was fraudulent. The money you received is now flagged as the proceeds of a crime and is under investigation." My mother's lips trembled. "You wouldn't do this to us." "I already did," I said, my voice low and controlled. "The law will handle the rest." I stepped closer to them. "You forged my name, you tried to steal my home, and you mocked me to my face. Did you really think I'd come back here and beg you for mercy?" I then pressed play on my phone. Their own voices filled the air, a recording from one of their secret planning sessions. "He'll lose everything. Let him cry. Let him see what it feels like to have nothing." My sister's eyes widened in horror. Silence fell, only the wind moved through the empty driveway. "I filed everything this morning," I said. "Forgery, fraud, financial crimes. But this isn't about revenge. This is about making sure that the next person you try to betray will see you for exactly who you are. You can't send your own family to jail," my mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. I looked at the house one last time. "You already did." By evening, the police came. I didn't watch. I didn't need to. My real house stood just behind the next gate, identical in design, untouched, silent. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, breathing in the calm. I wasn't smiling anymore. Some debts can't be repaid with money. But justice always pays with precision.